And welcome to Politically Incorrect Knitters. My name is Ann Pinkava, joined by the lovely Deplorable Knitter and special guest today, Keri Smith.
Hello.
Hey.
Thanks for having me.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us this week. We are sponsored by Chicken Lady Fiber Arts at chickenladyfiberarts.com and use our special code for 20% off of your order of $50 or more.
Which for the month of May is PIK Hot Wing.
PIK Hot Wing. She
There
was
you go.
really hungry, she said, when she was making the list. Everything's about food this year.
Right.
So,
Last year it was all bird themes. Now it's all bird, but with a definite
but food.
culinary twist. Yes.
So, and you have the giveaways, right?
Yes, the giveaway for the month of May is Western Meadowlark, part of her bird colorway from last year. Oh, and we've said it before, but do check out her Road Trip USA Advent Calendar. That is out. It is 12 minis in a large skein, and you can't use our code for that, however. She's fixed that, but it is very cool, and I hope you guys will go take a look at her page on chickenladyfiberarts.com.
Yes. Yes. And but Anne got frozen, so Keri and I were talking a little bit, and she got to meet like all the knitters. And I gotta say, I'm a little bit jealous because Anne and Keri have met all of you guys, and I've still only ever met Anne, who I love, but I've never met anyone else. So
I had so much fun. This was in February, like the end of January, beginning of February. And Nitty McPurley had a retreat in Texas, and Anne had the great idea. She was like, all these people are coming to Texas anyway. Why don't we do a deprogram meetup? And I'm so glad. I need people to suggest things for me because otherwise I won't think of them. And so yeah, we didn't know how many people would come. We just put the word out that we were going to meet for a deprogram get together at the at a local creperie. And there were so many people. It was like 30 people or more. Would
And
you
we should
say,
have done a
Anne?
head count.
Yeah, I think I did a count and it was at least 30. And it was, I mean, we took over the creperie, and I didn't know what to expect, so I didn't even give the creperie a heads up that we were coming. And then I got there and the place was packed. And everybody, you could tell it was a bunch of knitters because everybody was wearing the most beautiful hand knit wear and just colorful and happy, and people were knitting at the table and eating crepes. And everybody was just so friendly and cool to talk to. We hung out. We ended up moving out to the patio, and yeah, I got to meet, you said, Chicken Lady Fiber Arts. Anne was there, of course. I felt like we had already met, but that was our first
We
time
hadn't
meeting.
actually.
Yeah, that was the first time meeting in person. And um who else? Shelley Williams, Wise Owl Knits, Liz Knits and Naps, who made, I keep it here with me. She made me this lap blanket. Look at this. It's like this beautiful different colors of purple and gold. And she was like, "Oh, you can just keep that on your lap while you're podcasting." I'm like, I absolutely will. It's so
yeah,
beautiful. And then Anne made me these hand knit gloves. Man, I should have grabbed them before. Anyway, these fingerless gloves, so cool, with a matching hat and cowl. And I can't tell you, Anne, how many compliments I've gotten on that set. I wear it. I wear it.
Good.
Even now that it's warm, I still wear it. Or I'll just wear the cowl. And people are like, "Is that a cowl?" I'm like, "Yes. Somebody made this for me." Isn't it cool? Like, they're like, yeah. Anyway, it
that's
was
awesome.
just so many talented people. And it's so fun to hang out with knitters and just watch them go. Just watch them like, oh, totally talking and just like knitting the whole time, you know?
Yeah,
Anyway,
very
that's my
cool.
little summary.
Very cool. And I was also saying that it's been forever. Like, I don't think we've had Keri on the show in, I don't know, at least a year. It's been a while. So
Really?
it's really, really nice to catch up.
It is nice to catch up. I must lose track of time, or actually don't get mad. I might get the knitting shows confused.
That's true too.
There's
That I
there's a
know that,
few of us.
yeah,
I-
that, you know, I believe you've been on Knit Night before
Oh
and
man, I
Knitting
told
Wars back and forth, so I don't
Knitting
know
Wars.
which
Okay,
you would have been on last. Yeah.
okay. I'm so sorry. I told people on my show today that was going to be on Knit Night tonight. I'm so
Oh,
sorry. Politically, I know you're politically incorrect knitters. I guess I was thinking
that's
Knit Night
okay.
was the name. Anyway, my apologies.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry, knitters. I don't think you all look alike. all the knitters, all the knitters look alike.
Feel.
It's like a racist joke.
Wow, that was funny. Um, no,
Okay, as
so
long as you don't use
you
the hard
well,
R.
but you were traveling a lot too for a spell there. I think that's part of what happened. Your husband was on tour and you were
Oh
like,
yeah.
yeah, I mean,
Well,
that's how long it's been. So,
oh my goodness. Yeah, then I guess it has been a while. Yeah, so I am very grateful. Like I feel like, you got to take stock of all the things you're grateful for. Like it's a good antidote to ever feeling resentful or depressed or anything, is sort of like prayer. If you don't pray, even if you don't pray, like if you just do, that's why people do gratitude lists and stuff. Because neuroscience says if you say out loud or if you write down the things you're grateful for, it like boosts your mood. And anyway, so I always remain grateful that my husband and I get to travel so much. Even when, there's problems or you're on the road and you're like, oh, I just want to be home. And I'm like, no, I have to remain grateful because this is a blessing. Like, not everybody gets to do this. We get to go because of what he does for a living, music. We get to go all over the country and the world. Once a year, we go up to Montana with his band and he plays shows on the way up there, like Colorado and um, Montana, Wyoming, and then once a year we go to Europe with the full band. And so Germany and Switzerland, and then sometimes other places as well. But like, yeah, it's a lot of traveling, but I love it. I wouldn't, I'm not gonna, get into a place of ingratitude. It's kind of like when I give my dog too many treats and he starts crying and running around with a treat like he doesn't know he's had too many and he doesn't want to, he can't eat this one and he's looking for a place to hide it, and I just laugh because it's like I say, oh look, Tiger's had too many blessings, because he's like, "Woo." I'm like, oh, you have too many blessings, too many treats.
it's funny.
Anyway, yeah, I do travel a lot, and then we just went to New York a couple weeks ago.
Cool.
He had a show up there, so I had not been there in a while, and I got to see comedian Chrissy Mayer while I was there. That was cool. Meet her little baby, and
Cool.
Aw.
yeah, so traveling all around.
I know we had something specific in mind to talk to you about today, but
Yeah.
I don't know if we're just gonna like totally dive into it or what. I'm excited.
Let's
What do you
talk
think,
about
Well,
it.
Anne?
let's talk about it. Let's go. Now, something that you've been covering on your show lately, Carrie, has been the sort of woke right James Lindsay thing. It's something we've talked about a bit too, but you've been um, really on about it. Because you had come from woke and now kind of see it coming back in another way.
Am I supposed to know who James Lindsay is? I know I ask this every time.
James Lindsay is an academic. He along with Peter Boghossian and Helen Pluckrose wrote the grievance studies papers where they exposed how woke had infiltrated, how far it had infiltrated into academia.
Okay.
And they wrote all those crazy woke papers like about gender identity at the dog park and stuff, or rape culture at the dog park. And they got all these published in actual academic journals because they were woke.
Okay.
They rewrote Mein Kampf as like as a feminist Mein Kampf, and they got it published by some crazy academic journal. Like that. They were just sort of
Wow.
exposing how far gone academia was.
Okay.
And that's when I think that the three of them gained the most prominence. And he's just become someone who has been very instrumental in helping to explain the roots of what we call social justice or woke ideology, like where it came from in terms of Marxism, postmodernism, that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
So, and
Okay.
he's brilliant. I've had him on my show a few times. I think the most interesting time I had him on, because he's an atheist, but he is increasingly, just like Jordan Peterson, increasingly relying on scripture and reading the Bible and working, like thinking about it, which is so interesting to me. And he came on my show once with my pastor. So it's like two men who I greatly respect, one a Christian and one an atheist. And we talked about, like, is woke ideology, we're in this cultural war, but is it also a spiritual war? And the amazing thing was to see how much they agreed on about that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of a little of who he is.
Okay.
And then, yeah, like what Anna's saying is, lately he has been taking so much flack from people for talking about what he has coined the woke right. And I'll be the first to admit that at first I didn't like the phrase. I said so publicly, even though I agreed that I agreed that what he was seeing is what I was seeing happening, that there was this emerging ideology that claims to be on the right, that is very woke in nature. Yes, there's more of this. It is growing. But I didn't like the term, at first. I was sort
Right.
of like,
Yeah.
oh no, because we have so many normies who are still learning what woke is. And now I thought this is tactically a bad idea. And I now think I was wrong. The phrase has grown on me, and I'm happy to explain why. But basically there is this emerging ideology that, again, claims to be on the right. And the people who speak this ideology um, are speaking very woke ideas. And here's just some of them that have been popular lately. Um, they say things like, Black people are not American. They'll never be American. Black people are not even human. White people or heritage Americans, like they're coming up with their own cult language, just like woke did. They call us
Right.
white people heritage Americans. They say heritage Americans um, have had our posterity stolen from us. Posterity is a word they love to use. They mean our I guess our future and our country and our property, and that we need reparations, heritage Americans. That uh you know the Jews, some of them just love to, they're obsessed with the Jews did this, the Jews did that. They push a lot of provably false uh, I guess revisionist history, including that the Jews were behind 9/11. Um,
Wow.
and yes, and some of these are very big names. So Candace Owens is one of the ones that's pushing this, the Jews did 9/11 thing. And I actually took the time to go through just a short clip of hers and point out all the falsehoods. Not a matter of opinion, like factually inaccurate. And it's like, girl, you have a huge platform and you presumably have a staff that helps you write and edit this and research it. And in the clip, you claim to have done your research when it takes 10 minutes to go through and see you're factually wrong. Um,
You
and
know,
so, yeah,
I'm sorry, but like, I used to really enjoy listening to her. I really liked her. And I noticed, like, I don't know, maybe a year ago or something, she just started going off the rails. And I didn't
yes,
realize it was part of this whole woke thing that was going on. That's really interesting.
it is. And it's so fascinating to me because a lot of these people who are pushing this crazy stuff gained prominence by criticizing woke ideology and by criticizing COVID policies, both of which I agreed with completely. And so, like you, I followed a bunch of these people. I shared their work or their videos, what have you, their posts. And I'm at a point now where it doesn't matter to me what I agreed with you on in the past. I think that you are pushing evil, and whether you're doing so to try and destroy the right, I don't know. Some people say some of these people are being paid, they're leftist infiltrators. I don't know. Maybe some of them are. Um, Maybe they're just doing it for clicks and clout and money, because right now it's very popular to push anti-Semitism online. And no, for any detractors, I'm not talking about criticizing Israel. Criticize Israel all you want. Um, I don't have a problem with you criticizing Israel. I'm talking about actual anti-Semitism. I'm talking about telling
The,
people that Jews deserve to die, suck some more Jewish, COCK, stuff like that. Like
Yeah.
hatred of people for being Jewish. It's become
Yeah.
very popular. And so
And
anyway,
and sorry not to interrupt, but I think it's really interesting too that part of the I guess we get to definitions later, but part of this whole woke right thing, it's incredibly authoritarian that
yes.
you have people who start out like, oh no, I was anti-COVID lockdowns. You're like, fantastic. That's great. Love that. It's like, I love liberty. And you're like, yeah, I do love liberty. Liberty means what I want or else. And you're like,
And you're like,
no,
no, it
that
doesn't.
that's
Yeah,
not,
I,
that's
I was
not
with you
it.
until that thing there,
Yeah.
guys, and all of a sudden you went off the cliff.
It's
I don't
like
like.
liberty me like part of it's like that they don't believe that people can be convinced or you can live in peace with people who disagree with you. And it's like, whoa, honey, let's back
no,
that up.
they are saying, let me tell you, there are different factions of the woke right. And look, here's the best way to think of it. Because somebody asked me yesterday, and this is a great question. They said, Keri, why don't you just call them white supremacists? Why woke right? And I said, think of it like, because it's not just the white supremacists. It's think of it like this. Woke ideology, I've always described as an umbrella under which you have these different identity group movements, right? These grievance movements. So underneath the woke ideology umbrella, you've got the critical race theory, DEI, the race element, right? Then you've got the feminist, the sex element, the sex gender element. You've got the TRAs, the trans element, the gender ideology element. Then you've got, and they just kept adding categories of identity. You've got the fat positivity movement now, even the mental health justice movement, like all these different climate justice movement, all these things under the umbrella of woke. And they all work together to forward. They're basically like all together we take power, right?
Mhm.
And this whole like woke right ideology is also an umbrella ideology, and underneath it, yes, you have the groypers, these incel guys who follow Nick Fuentes and post disgusting stuff about the Jews, talk about how uh, if you get married, you're gay. They try to attack the traditional family and marriage, all while pretending to and LARPing as Christians,
Mhm.
posting stuff like Christ is King, die Jews, stuff like that. So you've got that element, these crazy anti-Semite incel people. Then you've got the so-called Christian leaders. There are pastors. There's a popular so-called Christian podcast called Stone Choir. I would put it in this woke right camp. The hosts of that podcast, they are tweeting stuff about how Black people are cursed by God. Black people are not Americans. They'll never be Americans, and they're not even human. Yes.
Like
Um,
I
and
some
mean,
and this is a
crazy stuff.
popular podcast among the so-called right. It's not. Um, then you've got this other element, which is the under this woke umbrella. You've got the Andrew Tate Manosphere guys. Andrew Tate, who's out here also attack. What is he doing? Just like the woke left, attacking traditional marriage, attacking the traditional family, saying just like Nick Fuentes, he's saying that if you get married, you're a cuck, that you should have babies with as many women as possible out of wedlock, like creating as many single moms as possible. He's a groomer, just like Jeffrey Marsh. He does videos where he's like, your children listen to me. They think this is why your children idolize me and think you're a loser. And it's like, wow, you're a freaking groomer. And you're
Yeah.
grooming young men into this amoral, unethical, it's not a conservative lifestyle. And so
And
it's
also
yeah.
you again to mirror the, woke left, it's like, it's the feminism. I hate men. All men are
Yes.
awful. Men are deplorable. They're let I once spoke to a girl who genuinely thought that men did not have proper emotional feeling. Like it was like a weird experience for me. And now you have this with it's just the men hating on women. It's
It's
just
You
Again,
nailed it.
it's the subhuman. Like, oh, they're just lying. They're to cheat. They're there to cheat you. You know, use them and leave them. And you know, the more wrecked lives you create, well, it was their fault for, you know, being born with a vagina. Like that's just like this weird gender war between the two. It's not just that it's the same flipped coin
It's
back
flip
and forth.
coin. You nailed it. So you can think of each of these identity grievance movements as just the inverse of the other. They're equally flawed. It's like taking the woke ideology and saying, okay, we agree with the entire woke ideology and the architecture of it. We're just going to flip the identity groups, the order of them. That's all they're doing. So you've got feminism in the woke left, and on the woke right, you've got this whole Andrew Tate manosphere thing. You know, over here on the woke left, it's like men are the root of all evil. They have male privilege, male toxicity, you know, all this stuff. They're just flipping it and saying women are the root of all evil. Everything's women's fault. Women should not be able to hold public office. Women should not be able to work outside of the home. Some of the ones who claim to be Christian are saying this now. Women should not be allowed to do these things. And they're not simply saying Christian women, you know, your role should be in the home primarily, which I agree with completely. And more people should be trying to be, you know, stay at home mothers and wives. I agree with that too. But to say legally, women, you are not allowed in the public square. And a lot of the guys who are saying this, these woke right pastors like Joel Webbin, Eric Kahn, Wesley Todd, who's an acolyte of Joel Webbin, these guys, their wives worked and paid for everything they have. Okay, like they are
Yeah.
hypocrites on top of it. So it's just I don't want to get too far afield, but it's just this mirror image of the woke left. And they even say, before I forget, let me include this because people go, but Keri, woke left is a kind of identity Marxism that's postmodern and authoritarian and collectivist. I'm like, yeah. That's why woke fits. I don't know if right fits. You know, I think some of these guys, because it is they are subscribing to this leftist Marxist ideology. They're just flipping the identity groups. They're saying stuff like Elijah Schaffer is now saying white men need to have racial consciousness. That white men need to develop racial consciousness. That's a woke phrase. That's completely collectivist. What do you think that is? And then just today, I saw one of the ones who claims to be a Christian. Here's what he tweeted. Yes, I do believe in forced church attendance. Obviously, that's not going to happen tomorrow, but making people attend church where they will hear the gospel preached to them every week is possibly the best thing a government can do for a citizen. And he goes on about how the state can enforce this and should enforce this. These guys, like you said, Anne, these guys are authoritarian. Like God doesn't want us to uh God is not like go and convert people at the butt of a gun, you know, or at the end of a gun, at the end of a spear. Like that's what the state is. It's the spear.
Yeah.
So I'm done with my rant. I just had to get
No,
it off.
it's
No. Oh, go ahead.
it's interesting though, because like I understand to an extent why some of these things are happening, because when woke is pushing feminism so hard
Yes.
that like they make it so that men feel that they're not valuable, I understand the pushback. You know,
Yes.
like a lot of us have been saying for a long time, no, I want a strong man, I want a strong husband. I there's nothing wrong with masculinity, but it's just that they've taken that and now they've gone like so far off the ledge with it. Like it's, you
They're
know, it's
become
a
they're
normal
becoming them.
response.
I completely understand where it comes from.
Hmm.
I understand why it's appealing. And I guess the reason I I have been talking about it lately is because it's almost like when, you know, all the past 8 years, when I've been trying to warn about woke left. And now I'm at the place where I think, okay, we need to the right needs to do what the left didn't do. The left failed to marginalize their crazy woke extremists. They actually made them
Right.
famous. They platformed them. They let the ideology cannibalize all of the left. The liberals did nothing. We did nothing. You know, we failed. And woke left became it destroyed the left. It destroyed the Democratic Party, and it almost destroyed our country. And we're at a time now where it's like, look, conservatives, you've got these fake conservative. They're not really conservative. Many of them are now saying openly that they're fascists. They're saying it. And they're saying fascism is the only answer to communism, that they are the answer to the woke left because liberalism and conservatism will fail. They say conservatism will fail. And that's a lie. And so they're saying, and they're also saying, get this, they're saying Churchill was the real villain of World War II. He, not Hitler, Churchill. And that, Hitler would have succeeded had we not intervened. He would have succeeded in stamping out communism. They're saying this, and they're teaching young people this. And so what I'm trying to say is, like, listen, conservatives, these people are not like you. They're not like you, and they're gonna, don't let them do to you what the woke left did to liberals and to our country. Like, these people are collectivists, they're authoritarians. They don't want to conserve anything. They, like the woke, they want to transform and remake
No,
society. They also
do.
say they want to destroy the Constitution, just like the woke
Yes.
left.
But
So
okay, anytime that you're on the side where you say Hitler was the good guy, that's a time to stop and reevaluate everything that you have going on. I'm just saying.
Yeah, and also, okay, there's a certain amount of, shock jockism where you're like, well, everyone says I'm a Nazi, so I might as well. And you're like, whoa, honey. Again, it's like they don't, and it's very, and we run into, you run into this with a lot of anti-Semitism too, where you're like, people don't necessarily have a lot of kind of background knowledge ideologically on things. And it's like I'm incredibly happy that Trump is elected, and the coalition that happened when Trump was elected is
yes,
fantastic. But it's like, but also looking at, you have people who don't know that communism and socialism is effectively the same thing. And they're like, oh, well, they're different and they fought each other. It's like, it's the same end. It ends the same way on both
yes,
sides. Sure, they hate each other. Great, fantastic. They want a little micro difference on each side. But it's like, these are the same people. And also, I think in conservatism, we have a little bit of a problem now that they're like in the 80s, you had William Buckley, and William Buckley was a gatekeeper, but he also, and I think it was an excellent thing that he was a gatekeeper. He was, this is the standard of what conservative is and what conservative isn't. And at the time, he was like, all the whole racism back and forth. A lot of people who are like their books are being quote rediscovered by the woke right, and they're all like, oh yeah, this is brilliant, this is great. And Buckley was like, no, that is out, that is not us. And I think right now we kind of have, we like, there's Trump, and Trump is standing against things, but Trump is not quite ideological, and that there's not a lot of good scholarly, this is liberty, this is not liberty right now, that I think there's a little bit of a struggle with that.
yes. Um, I agree with everything you're saying, and you may not be shocked to learn, you may already know that the woke right targets William Buckley. Did you know
Oh, of
this?
course.
Yeah, so they
Probably I
have,
haven't seen specifically, but he seems like a likely figure.
yes. I've been listening to a lot of their podcasts, and they are really developing a lexicon just like the woke left did.
Yeah.
They have a shorthand of how they speak. Here are some of the things they say. They say that they say post-war consensus all the time. Have you guys heard that phrase before?
No.
Yes.
I
You've heard
I
it,
I
Ann?
gotta Carrie, I gotta admit, I've heard of this woke right thing, but I have not like really gotten into it. So like I'm on the edge of my seat. I don't know a lot of this. It's like
Okay.
all new.
So they say that the post-war consensus was that basically after World War II, the conservatives and liberals got together and sold us this lie, all of the West, this lie, this fake narrative. And they blame William Buckley. They say he was the conservative face of the post-war consensus because he gatekept, because of what you said, he kept the crazies out. And they said, basically the post-war consensus is this lie that Hitler was the bad guy. They say it was
And,
they say that Churchill was the real villain, and that
right. And
Western society fell into Marxism and all of this. That the whole reason we have the woke left is because we intervened in World War II, and stopped Hitler from wiping out all the Jews, which would have not made sure that, because the Jews are behind everything, including woke. This is really what they say. And just really quickly, Anne, before we jump in, I have to say this so it's not taken out of context. I am currently reading a book by the guy who coined the phrase post-war consensus, who's a Christian. He's a Catholic, and it is not, the way they're using it is not the way he intended. And I hope when I'm done with this book, I can interview him, because I've seen an interview with him. The book that he wrote is called Return of the Strong Gods, Nationalism, Populism, and the Future of the West. And his name is R.R. Reno. And I think so far, I'm not done with the book, but I think he's great. And I've seen him do an interview where he's like basically disagreeing with everything these woke right people are saying. That's not the way he used post-war consensus in the book. He used it to say that essentially after World War II, we developed in the West, we developed this consensus that um, that we should never again, to try to keep people from becoming very passionate about an ideology, or to try and prevent another Hitler, that we embraced multiculturalism and globalism and stuff like this. Like, he used it in that way. He did not mean by it that he did not use post-war consensus in the same way the woke right is using it, which is to say that Churchill was the villain of World War II.
right. No,
Anyway,
I've heard the term post-war consensus used before, and kind in that way with multiculturalism, but most of
yeah.
what I is like, okay, excuse me, like the way NATO is set up, like the way that the European Union happened, that it's like the way
Mhm.
that countries behave toward each other post-war. I mean, also with a bunch of the Cold War stuff brought in there, which, seems to be under like not a very studied period of time in the woke right land. That you have William Buckley. Oh, it's like Buckley hated communism, but they're ignoring all of that.
Yes.
But the idea of post-war consensus being like how countries behave with each other so that there's not going to be another world war, we hope, as opposed to, it it's this idea, and a lot of people throw this around, that it's like, oh, well, the wars, the history books are told by the victors.
Yes.
So if you won, you're lying about it, becomes the flip of that.
Yes.
So nobody must know what actually happened during a conflict. Nobody knows, you know, like, gosh, nobody knows anything. It's like, who
It's
Winston
very
Churchill is.
postmodern, right? Nobody, what is
Yes,
truth? What is
what is
real?
truth? Yeah, they're like, you
They
must be lying.
they
But
even say recently, just within the past few weeks, like they've been kind of exploding online and really revealing a lot of their hand. They have been saying that Marx got a lot of things right. Okay. That Marcuse got a lot of things right, that we should become these are some of the Christian woke right people who are saying that their followers, that we Christians should become more Machiavellian, more manipulative and deceitful. Saying this on camera, on podcast, Christians need to lie more, that we need to attain power by any means necessary. I'm like, you know what? You're telling Christians to become more Machiavellian. That is very woke, first of all, and it's not Christian. You're not telling them to become more Christ-like. You're telling them to become the opposite, to gain power by
yeah.
any means necessary. And what does it tell you that they say power? They're so focused on power, just like the woke left. Um,
Well, it sounds like they need to read their Bible.
yes, thank
Like
you.
like if this is where we're going, perhaps we should like go back to basics and just, open that book that we have. That's like, if you're a pastor, it's what you should be doing.
Yes,
It's nonsense.
And also it's a supremacy of their ideas too, that it's like the Constitution, the Constitution must not fail because or it must have failed because it's not being followed properly.
Yes.
While Christianity must fail because it's not doing what we want. So we got to do what we want over being Christian. Like,
Yeah.
like I know the way and therefore the Bible is wrong.
They seem to believe that, well, not only do they say things that are completely antithetical to Christianity, like lie more, but they also seem to believe that if they can just get the power, that they can force Christianity on everyone. And then if you're forced by the state to go to church every week and you're forced by the state to, like, for example, some of them are saying, some of the leaders are saying that you shouldn't be able to hold office if you're Jewish, only if you're Christian, things like this. They seem to think that if they make Christianity compulsory, that somehow an external Christianity, that it will lead to an internal conversion and people, they will win hearts this way. That is not the way it works.
No. I
And
mean,
yeah.
I have kids, right? And so sometimes the more I try to get them to do what I want them to, the less likely they are to do it. Like it's just because you try to force somebody doesn't mean that they're going to be like, oh yeah, that was a great idea after all. No, they're just going to hate you and they're not going to do it anyway. They're going to flip you the bird while they're not doing it. So I'm sorry. My kids are starting to get to that age where they get,
Oh
they
no.
don't flip me the bird, but they've got their own opinions now. They're not small anymore. And like, these people, like I said, I don't know that much about it, but these ideas just seem like anybody who has two brain cells to rub together would look at this and go, this is probably not like what we should be going for. I don't know.
It's weird because, like woke left, I think we're in this period where, well, okay, we're in this period where I'm starting to see people in real life falling for this. It's not just online anymore. I know people in real life that are getting sucked into this.
Oh no.
And it does seem like on its face, like, how could you not see what this is? But a lot of it is, it's this human desire for vengeance and revenge. I've talked to a few of these people and they're like, they will admit that I want revenge. And I'm like, okay, the Bible says, vengeance is mine, says the Lord. I want justice. Yes. There are people that need to face earthly justice. Like Fauci should be put on trial. Like there are things that need to happen. But wanting to become the enemy you fight, like wanting to become the monster you fight, it destroys you. And they get their way anyway, because now it's like they're fighting, the woke left is fighting to destroy the Constitution, to remake America, to make it an authoritarian state, an identitarian kind of country where we look at people and judge people based on identity group. And it's like, if you do that, the same thing they want to do, you just flip the races and sex, whatever. You're giving them what they want, though. Like you're doing what they want. So they found a way to make you work for them. And it's just, we, I think this is just a very bad path to go down. And it makes my heart hurt that people would be falling into it. But again, I understand why. And let me say this real quick. I know it's not as big as woke left. Of course it's not. People always say it's not as big as woke left. No, not yet. It's not. They don't hold any power yet. They don't hold, the left, woke left grew to be so big that it devoured the Democratic Party. It devoured all of our institutions, the media, the government, academia, K through 12, like all of entertainment and everything, and hobby groups, knitting, right? And this is like very small in comparison, but it's not as small as it used to be, because now you've got big, powerful platforms like influencers who are the new media. Everybody's lost their trust, and rightfully so, in the old media institutions, because they lied to us all during COVID. Push propaganda. They're liars. And so people have put their trust in these new media podcasts and platforms. And what are these platforms doing? What are these people doing? Some of them are now starting to push this crazy stuff. So it's like, the reason I talk about it is like, we have to be as discerning with the new media types as we were with the old media, and just be careful. And it could be, maybe it never grows to be as big as woke left, but what if it's used by the woke? Like we got the woke left on the back foot now. And
Yeah.
right when that's happening, this weird woke right stuff emerges. Isn't that kind of funny? They get to point to these people now and say, see, that's the boogeyman we always told you existed. That's what the right is. And we're like, that's not the right. Like, what are you doing?
Right. I mean, you just said we should be discerning, and I think that that's important. When somebody is saying something that seems off, you should stop and question it, whether or not they're on your side or not. If you're listening to a person and they're saying, you know, 9/11 was caused by the Jews, stop, reevaluate, decide if that's like worth your time. I don't have time to consume a lot of media. So like if somebody I loved was saying that, I would have to be like, I'm out, like
Yeah.
but
And also, yeah, it's a built-on thing where people are like, "Oh, well, the COVID stuff was crazy. So what about JFK? And so what about the moon landing? And so what about all of these conspiracies must be right too?" And you're like, "No. Stop. Get
Yeah,
help."
like go
Sorry.
through them one by one and evaluate. It's sort of, it doesn't mean that every crazy thing we're in this, unfortunately, because of what the woke left did, we're in this post-truth world, but that doesn't mean that you suddenly jump on and latch on to every piece of insanity. Um, and so yeah, just be hesitant. Um, there's a lot of truth to there are other conspiracy theories that I think have a lot of truth to them, like Pizzagate. I do.
Mhm.
I don't care if people think I'm a weirdo. I think there was something behind those emails. I've read the Podesta emails, but the thing is, like, put the work in to see. Those lies Candace Owens was telling that I debunked on X. Um, it sounded off to me, and so I looked it up, and it was what she's saying is not even true. And there's no way that she doesn't know that it's not true. I came to that conclusion. I was like, this is not a mistake. She knows this. She knows she's saying lies. Um, and that will tell you a lot about a person if they're willing to do that. If you haven't tuned into her in a long time, DK, some other stuff she's been doing is she says that dinosaur bones are fake and they were put here
I
to fool
heard
us.
that. I heard that. So she started going off the rails, and I decided that I wasn't going to put my time into her. And I found, like, before Dan Bongino went to the FBI, like, he was my go-to. Like,
Mm,
I find a couple of people that I feel like they're really telling me the truth, and I try not to stray too far because, and Anne and I love to get our information from alternative sources. And even like we'll be talking about something that's not that big of a deal, and we'll be like, we heard this once, we haven't verified it. It might not be true because you hear stuff, it sounds good, but
yeah.
that doesn't mean it's true. And that's what people need to start doing. Like when somebody's saying something, you're like, don't just go repeating it. Like take a second and try to decide
Yeah.
if it's like real.
And the other thing is
But
that if you become familiar with what con artists and psychopaths do, it'll help you better spot the frauds. Like Jordan Peterson got a lot of attention this week because he went on Joe Rogan and he talked about cluster B and psychopathy and how it's related to all of these hucksters on the left or the right and the kind of stuff they push. I thought he was spot on. It's the kind of stuff I've been interested in for a while. And he was sort of just talking about like if you become familiar with the ways in which these personality disordered people operate, like you will become better able to spot when someone's like completely dark. That's my word for it, dark, and just pushing something dark, like because the behaviors are off and they contradict themselves. They can't help it. They're hypocrites. It's like the pastors I mentioned who are saying that women should not be allowed to work outside of the home. One of these guys, he's going on and on about how women shouldn't be allowed to have podcasts, and it's like, wow, that's so weird because you were on Allie Beth Stuckey's podcast and you bragged about it forever, and then Allie Beth Stuckey came out and said that you tricked her into being on her show, that her ad team, that you bought a 20-minute ad, and then after they had to sign the contract, you said the ad is you interviewing me. And he
oh my gosh.
how desperate, right? And she was like, that was the only paid fake interview I've ever done. And I told my ad team we're never doing that again. So it's so rich that you're saying women shouldn't be allowed to have podcasts when you paid your way and tricked your way onto mine. And the very same week he was saying women shouldn't be allowed to have podcasts. He was bragging that Candace Owens had played one of his crazy clips. you know, so there's a woman with a podcast playing your crazy clip and you're excited about it. But hey, women shouldn't have podcasts, right? Like, these guys are all hypocrites. They all contradict themselves. Con artists always do. They speak beliefs that they think are popular at the time. The danger is that a lot of the followers are sincere. Like they believe they believe the stuff you're saying. You know, that's the woke left is a great example. The followers, a lot of them believe it. They believe it's a movement to end racism and stuff. Like they believe it. I believed it when I was in it. And the followers
Right.
here on the woke right, a lot of them are buying this crap. It's like sociopaths pushing anti-Semitism, and but the followers are like actually becoming racists, you know?
Right.
Like, so that's the danger of it. It's like, especially the ones who are Christian, it pisses me off as much as woke left fake preachers, you know, like the false shepherds of the woke left, it bothers me almost more than anything else. And it's the same with these woke right pastors because you're taking desperate people who are looking for truth and looking for God, and you're just like putting them on the path to the devil. That's the way I view it. Whether it's woke left pastors or woke right, you're not teaching them Christianity. You're teaching them something else, but you're cloaking it in the name of God, and that's disgusting. So, um, you might get some pushback in your comments. I'm just telling you now. Some people don't like me talking about woke right. Anyway,
Well,
that's what
I
I
mean,
think.
anytime that people jump in and start saying stuff, I don't know. It's another cue to listen because why
Yeah,
don't they want us talking about it?
yeah,
If it's fine and there's nothing bad about it, then it's, you know, then this is just our opinion. So, oh, sorry
yeah.
guys.
Oh, you're fine. I just think what I said before we started, you are in such a beautiful undisclosed location, DK. Look at that blue sky behind you.
I know, right? A rare sunny day here. We don't get a lot of them.
It's so
So,
nice.
but
You know,
I,
I think I think it's an important issue, which is, you know, why I asked you to be on to talk about it because it is important to have discernment. And it's I don't know, it's a ideological trick that's like, well, you know, if they're not for us, they're against us. I'm like, not really.
Yeah, and also, you know, I know you have a lot of woke knitters who hate your show and stuff. And let me just say something to the woke knitters or to woke people in general. You guys caused this, okay? It's your fault. It's your fault because you called everybody a fascist. You incorrectly used words like racist and fascist and while you were behaving in a racist and fascist manner, by the way. But you misuse those words until they don't mean anything anymore, almost to especially to Gen Z. And so now when there's actual fascism and actual racism rearing its head and claiming to be on the right, and we try to talk about it and put it, you know, warn people about it, you know what they say? They say, oh, everything's racist now. That doesn't mean anything. Oh, everything.
true.
Oh, everybody's a Nazi now. Man, you sound woke for even saying it. That's what they say.
I
You
mean,
guys were the boy who cried wolf. Okay.
I say that a lot actually. And I was thinking, you know, it's kind of hypocritical of me because here I am, I'm Deplorable Knitter. And I'm like, why would people call themselves fascists? And I'm like, I mean, I get why it happens, but I don't know. The deplorable thing was more tongue in cheek, joking
Oh, yeah.
than like going by a fascist. Like if they've called me like a homophobe and stuff. Like if I had used that as my moniker, that would have been weird. Like, you know, you
Deplorable.
gotta
There's a great name. See, the thing is, we went through that period of mocking them for calling everybody all these horrible
yeah,
names. And now we've got this younger generation falling for these Pied Pipers, and it's beyond mocking. Like they're actually starting to believe a lot of this crap. And again, I trace it back to the woke left. Like you guys did this. It's so weird talking to a woke lefty. I have some friends who are still woke lefties, believe it or not. And I was hanging out with a couple of them a few weeks ago, and kind of trying to talk about some of the stuff we agreed with. And they were doing the same old thing, like Trump is authoritarian, all stuff. I was like, no, he's not. And you know what? There's an actual authoritarian kind of ideology that's now rearing all the stuff you think or you say he is, there's a little contingent of that that's growing. And that's real, you know. And the thing is, honey, like, you're not going to be of any help in stopping it because nobody takes you seriously because you're so blind.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I didn't say it this bluntly to my friend.
Yeah.
But I was like, I don't think you're going to be able to help because I don't think you see it correctly. And nobody's going to be like, you know, yeah, you can come help us fight this problem because you think we're a part of the problem. So,
Okay, so this is slightly to the side of this, but okay, you see this a lot in the left that it's like, oh, you're a Trump supporter, so you believe this, and this. And I see it kind of on the other side too, that conservatives will be like, oh, especially when they're doing comments online. And sure, you know, a quick comment and a joke is normally just that, but it's like, oh, this person does this, and I bet they're also okay with tampons in the boys' room, and this, and this. And it's like there is kind of an ideological grouping on both sides, and you can say that, well, you know, I bet you support these 5 horrible things, but there's a tendency to kind of to not assess the person directly what they're saying, even if they come from a leftward side. Like they might have some things that you disagree with, but it's sort of this sort of sorry, this straw manism. It's almost schizophrenia at some point that who are you arguing with? Because I'm not sure you're arguing with a real person right now. You're arguing with your idea of the person. Now that might track, but it also might not, that you get that kind of you're beating against the air there.
yeah, I do see that happening. But I read a study a few years ago. I was participating in this panel, and it was related to the panel, and I was reading a couple studies, and one of them was about how we used to, like 50 years ago or so, Democrats and Republicans, for example. Let's take political parties instead of saying leftist or or liberal, conservative. Let's just take parties. Democrats and Republicans used to be better able to articulate correctly the opinions of the opposing side, like to get it right,
Right.
to say this is what they think, and for the other side to go, yeah, that is what I think, right? And today, that's just fallen apart. For the most part, both parties are much more incapable of articulating the opinions of the other side, but the Democrats are much worse at it.
Right.
That's what the
Mm-hmm.
study showed, is like, even though they've both gotten a lot worse at it, the Democrats are way off base. So when they say, like, they're even further, like, that to me, it is more evidence of kind of what I've observed, which is that the left became much more cult-like and insulated um in the past, like, 20 years, 15 years or so. But yeah, they have no idea. And even my friend, that I was talking with, when I go into these conversations with a person that I love and respect, like in real life, I have to be very um I'm much more soft gloved, I guess you would say, because a lot of times they don't know any of the facts of what we're talking about. And it, if you're giving them information that they haven't heard before, it could very easily come off as, like, even if you're not intending it, it's like you kind of condescending to them. Or so I have to kind of say, well, I read this, like, what do you think about that? Because otherwise, if it just like, how do you not know this, like, like, then it stops all discussion. But they really don't know what's going on, and they have opinions on a lot of things, but they don't know where. It's almost like they don't know where those opinions come from, because when you start talking to them about the facts of the thing, like, let's say trans in kids, for example, they have no idea. They don't know the surgeries that are going on, the operations. They don't know anything about the CAS report, the WPATH files. They don't follow any of it. They have no clue. They don't know who Chloe Cole is. They don't know about detransitioners, but they have these very strong opinions that came from somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if
Yeah.
that's
I
kind of where
mean,
I'm at.
I I'm not surprised that that study showed that, because like I don't have a whole bunch of left people I talk to in real life. Like it's just the way it's worked out. But there's a couple that I'm like still friends with on Facebook, and sometimes the stuff they say is just like so off the wall. I read it and I'm like, do you like truly believe that? Or are you just trying to like tick off people who don't agree with you on you know what I mean? Like, because some of the stuff is
Like
just like
Facebook isn't monetized. I don't get it.
but like, you know, Anne was saying about all these conspiracy theories, like that's what it is. It's like, yeah, the moon landing took place in the studio in LA. Like it's so like out there that you're like, I, I don't know. If you did like a minute of research or listen to something that wasn't MSNBC or something, it would probably your whole view would probably change. Like I don't get how people, sorry. I just they're so isolated now. I guess that's the
Yeah,
issue. And
they're so
they just
isolated.
have no idea. And they don't want you to, but they don't want you to challenge their issues either, because they want to think that we're bad guys. And so like you can't talk to them about it, because then they might have to admit that they're wrong or that they misinterpreted, or that's a little off topic, but I don't know.
I
It
think
just
I'm
kills
very
me.
blessed because my friends that I do talk to about this who disagree, for the most part, like this friend I was talking to a couple weeks ago, for example, she actually does want to know.
Mhm.
So she doesn't know a lot of things, but she wants to know. Yes, she is horrified. She found out we voted for Trump, and I was like, I thought you knew. Like, what?
Like you're sitting there in your Trump shirt and your Trump hat, and you're like,
What did you
"Hi."
think we were doing, right?
I
Like,
know. And then, but then it was like, then we had a really good, like 3 hour conversation. And even though she was getting upset and she has all these preconceived notions about what that means about me and my husband or whatever, she was very, like, she really is curious and she really does want to know. And so when you find those people, like, that's a blessing to be able to talk with those people who disagree. And that not everyone's like that. Some people, they don't want
no.
to, they'll just write you off, kick you out of their house, like, unfriend you, say bad stuff about you. And um, so yeah, I have a few of those people in my life, and that's a blessing.
That
Even
is
though
good. I think that a lot of our issues would be solved if more people could just talk to each other like
I
civil, normal people.
completely agree. Completely. And gosh, why it's just very hard lately, that's all. Social media makes it in some ways easier and in some ways harder, you know.
Yeah. I mean, it's cool because like I've gotten to meet like Anne and you and different people through social media, but also it's so much easier to call somebody a fascist when you're behind a keyboard. And so it emboldens people who have crazy ideas to go around spouting them, and who's going to challenge them? Like, you know,
Right.
it changes everything. I don't know.
Yeah. I'll say this, if there's any woke knitters watching, when you call everyone a fascist, you make it really easy for the actual fascists to just kind of like blend in and hide, because you know everybody's being called that, so no one's paying attention when you say, I actually found one, there's one over here and they have a big platform and like we should be aware. And everybody's like, ah, shut up, I've heard that 100,000 times. you know
Yeah.
you make it really hard, so think about what you're doing. Think about what you're doing when you call deplorable knitter names. Like, you're a moron for doing that.
Yeah.
Deplorable
Luckily, I'm
knitter's
not
gonna have a
actually.
better chance of convincing to getting someone off that evil fence than you'll have, and that's sad.
Yeah. But, you know, the left uses those words to do it. And then we got the right saying, yeah, let's make everybody go to church every week. I'm a Christian. I do not go to church every week. It just it's life. I don't know. Like,
State This guy said state enforcement, and if you don't go, you have to pay a fine, and if you don't pay the fines, you end up in prison. And by the way, this is not the majority of the right. This is not conservatives. This is this
no.
fringe, crazy, woke right extremist part. But they would be very happy. You know what they're trying? They hate the woke right label. You know what they're trying to rebrand as now? They keep trying new things. They were calling themselves the dissident right, then the true right. Now they're trying to call themselves the real right.
Oh
And
my
I'm like,
gosh.
you freaks! It's so funny because the woke left thinks that you're the real right, and you think you're the real right, but you're not.
I, it's
Yeah. And again, it's just like what it's like it's just a cudgel for everything. It's just like, Christianity is what you want to beat people over the head with for something that isn't Christianity.
Yeah.
That's like, okay, so if you like leaning politics, it's like I will use that to force what I want. And you may think that what you want is the right-leaning ideology, but it's just a package for something else. But
yeah.
Yep.
anyway, we are kind of getting to the end here.
Are we? We've come to the end.
We've got a few more minutes.
Okay.
So, was there any other points that we didn't talk about that you wanted to
Man,
share, Keri, or?
I think I got into, I'm sorry I spoke a lot because I wanted to get in everything, like the important things. I think I got in the important things I wanted to say,
Good.
and I hope people will listen to what I'm saying and not invent stuff that I'm not saying. Some of the biggest comments I get from people who don't like when I talk about the woke right is they say, so you're saying I can't criticize Israel? I'm like, "No, when did I mention Israel? Criticize Israel all you want. I don't think we should be sending money there. Um, I'd never talk about Israel because I don't have an opinion really on the conflict other than I don't want to be funding other countries' wars.
Right.
And I do think they have a right to defend themselves. But I don't have a lot of war theory on how best that's done, and I'm not getting into it. Like and you can go criticize Israel all you want. Quit doing a straw man. This is not about that. This is about rising woke ideology. Um, and I guess the other criticism I get is it's kind of woke. They say that's not really happening. And then when you show them influential people who are pushing this stuff, they say, well, it is happening and it's a good thing, just like the woke. And that happens. So it is happening. And the third is people who don't like the phrase, which I completely understand. I didn't like it at first either. And I refused to use it at first. I kept calling them the different identity groups underneath that umbrella. But I finally came to believe that woke right is the best term for it. And all those, because otherwise every time you have to say, the white supremacists and the manosphere women haters and, the He-Man women haters club or whatever. Like you got to go through and list all of them. And it's like the woke left. It's a bunch of grievance-based, identity-based movements under this one umbrella. So I think it's all.
Yeah. I I understand where some of the groups came from. I really do, because with like the way that things have been going for many years, I understand people get sick of it.
Mm-hmm.
Get sick of being called these names after a while, but they were okay, and then they went over the yeah. It's just
Well,
nuts.
I sometimes it's the Marxist framework for things, the struggle for power between groups, but it's almost as if they don't have any other context for the world except for the one that they have been given, from the woke left.
Yes.
So they don't have a wider way to think of things. They don't have people should be self-determined, that people know what is best for themselves. They don't have that in their sort of ideological view. It's like people are the way they are and they cannot change ever, and therefore I have to force them. It's terrible.
They really do. You hit the nail on the head. They have accepted the premises of the woke left. They've
Mhm.
accepted that ideology and that framework, but they just swap out the identity groups. But they're basically saying, yes, woke left, we agree with you that the best way to look at the world is to look at the world as a struggle for power among identity groups. That is a good way of looking at the world. That's what it is. And what we're going to do is say our identity groups first, because that's what you guys are doing. But that makes them woke. Like they're doing the same thing. And you don't beat the woke by doing that. You don't. And they're even I argued with one of them yesterday. He was saying, you know what? I posted something about how, James Lindsay and others have been saying this, Adam Coleman and others, that, Gen Z doesn't know what it was like in the 80s and the 90s. I mean, the 80s and the 90s, there were all kinds of women and people of color and stuff on TV and movies and pop culture. And those of us who, the end of Gen X, we grew up with all this. Nobody really gave a crap what race you are or anything. And nobody knew, the average person didn't know these cult words like white privilege and white fragility, and they didn't know the woke right phrases like heritage American and altruistic whites and post-war consensus. Anyway, they didn't know all these things, and nobody gave much of a crap. Yes, there were racial issues still even then. Yes, there were, like OJ Simpson trial, for example. There were things like that, but it wasn't all consuming like it is now. Gen Z doesn't know this. Gen Z they didn't grow up, they didn't get to experience that. And all they've known is this, because of the woke left, is this ridiculous, just drenched in identity politics, drenched in identitarianism. That's what they've known. And so it's easy to tell them this is what the world is like. It's always going to be this, a war between racial groups. And you need to get racial consciousness, as Elijah Schaffer is telling young white men. And you need to become, this guy was arguing with me yesterday. He goes, I said, look, in the 90s, nobody cared about race so much. And he was like, that's not true. He said, only a detached white person would say that. Black people have always had to be, they've had to be aware of race. And you know what? At first I thought he was a woke leftist, because that's what they say. I thought he was a woke lefty because they're like, how dare you, white person? Black people always have to be aware of, only white people are colorblind, right? That's what they
Right.
say. And so I was like, oh my God, this is a woke lefty. So I said to him what I usually say to woke lefties. I said, you don't speak for Black people. Here's a whole bunch of Black people who disagree with you, who said they didn't see race in the 90s, right? So he kept arguing with me. And then I realized he's not woke left, he's woke right. Because all of a sudden he starts talking about, no, it is true. Black people have always been race obsessed and racially conscious. It's only us altruistic whites who've been colorblind, and we need to develop racial consciousness like them. And I was like, oh my God, you're not woke left, you're woke right. But isn't it funny? You say the same things they do.
It I don't understand. And you're totally right. Back in the 80s and 90s, there was no big deal. I have an aunt who is Black, and all my cousins, obviously all of her kids are Black, and they were just my cousins, and I never even thought about it. And then all of a sudden, in the past, 10 or 15 years, it's been like a thing. And I'm like, but I'm pretty sure that for the most part, we were all treated the same. Like one of her kids was really obnoxious, and so they got yelled at more. But I think that was because they were obnoxious, not because they were
Yeah.
Black. But it's like, I don't get it. Like, I I have feelings about when that happened, but I'm not even gonna start that now because I
Because we
gotta
got to wrap
go.
it
But
up.
yeah, people were just people, and I don't understand why we can't just let it go. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Let it go. Let it go.
Come on, Elsa. But
Listen, ladies,
anyway,
I just wanted to say thank you, because I know you're about to wrap it up, but thanks for letting me come on and talk about this. And you can direct all hate mail to the Colin Oates hotline. That's the phone number I usually give out. If you call it, they
okay.
play a Hall and Oates song for you. So it's like a Rickroll, but a phone number. No, but
That's
for
funny.
real, I just appreciate you having me on and to talk about what is probably going to be a little bit of a controversial topic with your viewers. So
No,
yeah.
I'm glad because I've heard a lot about it, but I didn't know much about it. So I'm really glad that you like kind of gave me a little
Um,
education on the whole matter. Um, but where can everybody find you? I mean, you're deprogrammed, but
you can find me on Deprogram with Keri Smith on YouTube and Rumble. It's real Keri Smith on X and Instagram. And I have an interview, my first in-person interview in my studio with Adam Coleman is coming out soon. I'm really happy because I want to start doing it sit downs. I think it's so fun to just sit down with somebody in person. Like, Anne, we saw each other at the retreat. So Anyway,
Yeah.
that's coming out soon.
Yeah. Anne and I
Awesome.
talk all the time about how seeing people in person is just different. Like I love Anne like this, but when I see her in person, it's like, hey, you're like a person. It's great.
You're real.
You have legs and everything. It's fantastic. But okay, so check out Keri Smith on her channel. There are no new knitting wars for the foreseeable future because Anne is gallivanting around the world and whatnot. But don't forget to check out Chicken Lady Fiber Arts. You can use the code PIK Hotwing.
Hot wing. Hot wing singular, just one wing. One wing
Yeah,
is
you only
enough
get
when it's
one.
chicken lady.
Yeah, you can use the code PIK Hotwing for 20% off of your order of $50 or more, excluding her advent calendars because those are way too special. Sorry, friends. And comment
Check it
below to
out
be
when they sell
entered
out.
in what's that yarn? Comment below to be entered to
For
win.
Western Meadowlark is this month's giveaway. So comment below.
Awesome.
Argumentative comments will still count, so get in that chat section, people.
Yeah. Maybe one of the haters will win. I mean, you never know. You might get some
It
cool
could
yarn out of
happen.
the whole deal. So whatever. Um,
We don't discriminate.
but Keri, thank you for coming. It was a lot of fun. I'm so glad we finally got to see you. It's been such a long time. So, well, at least for me, I know Anne saw you in real life, but whatever. Um,
Me too.
and
Thank you guys for having me. It was fun. I like hanging out with you.
yeah, we appreciate it. I'm still a little salty about missing the meetups. So, but thanks, guys. We will see you soon. All right.
Like,
Bye.